How's it going, everybody? My name is Ragnar. I'm going to be talking about the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. The book basically talks about that Robert had two fathers, one who was a poor educational teacher, and one who was a rich, successful businessman who owned restaurants and stores and stuff like that. His poor dad was his actual father, and his rich dad was his friend's father, his best friend's father. And in the book, he talks about the different methods that both of those father figures taught him throughout his life. In the book, he talks about 6 lessons. The first lesson is the rich don't work for money. The second lesson was why teach financial literacy. In that chapter, he talks about how to actually learn more about financial literacy, what to do, learn about stocks, learn about real estate, learn about basically what is an asset and what is a liability. So a car is always a liability unless you perhaps rent it out, but even then it's most often a liability. An asset is something that can get you paid, while a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. So buying a house for yourself, paying a mortgage of it, paying taxes on it, that's a liability. But buying a house and then renting it out and getting money from it, that's an asset. The third lesson is mind your own business. Basically think about your own business, don't criticize other people. The fourth lesson is history of taxes and the power of corporations. He talks about if you're a corporation, you can avoid paying taxes if you first pay for everything else. You pay expenses, you pay for stuff you need in the business. If you basically spend money first, then you pay taxes. But if you're just an employee, you work and then you have to pay taxes on that first, and then you can spend what's left of the money on yourself, which corporations don't do. They spend the money first, then they pay taxes on what's left. In lesson 5, he talks about the rich invent money, what the rich do that the poor and middle class don't, how they make money by spending money. He talks about that he has never met a rich person that hasn't lost some form of money, but he has met a lot of poor people that have never actually lost any money in their life, and that's just because the rich know that they have to take risks. They know that they don't have a choice in that matter. They take the risk and gain money, but the poor that never actually take any risk, they are paying for they're paying for the risk by paying for taxes, paying taxes on the salary that they make, and on the house that they own, and the car that they own. So they're always paying money somehow. But the business person who owns a business, he knows that he has to take risks to make more money. In lesson 6, he talks about work to learn, don't work for money. In this lesson, he's talking about that learn from somebody that is doing what you're doing, or what you want to do. So find people that are doing exactly what you want to do and basically learn from them. One thing that I would recommend is reading the book Tools of Titans by Timothy Ferriss. There he's talking about he has 3 key concepts in that book: healthy, wealthy, advice. So you basically can read about successful people, what they did, what key tactics they are using, and habits that they used in their daily lives. So I recommend the book Tools of Titans if you want to learn from other people that are successful. Then he, in the first chapter, he's talking about that so many people, they actually talk about that they don't, they are not interested in making money, but they work 8-hour days every single day for the rest of their lives. And that's a horrible way of living, because you're always terrified of paying your bills, you're terrified of having to pay off a mortgage, you're terrified of paying off a car, so you're constantly always working, and then you get into the rat race and you don't have a choice anymore. You own a house, you own cars, you own stuff like that, and you're basically always having to pay money on things. So he talks about that. He recommends working a job to get money that you can then put into a business or a corporation or something like that. So you can actually buy real estate, stocks, buy bonds, buy stocks in small companies, then sell it later and stuff like that. He talks about that school is important, but it's only important for people that want to learn a skill or profession to become a contributing member of society. So every culture needs teachers, doctors, mechanics, artists, cooks, business people, police officers, firefighters, and soldiers. So school is important for like becoming a doctor. It's important to become if you want to be a teacher for school, but haven't actually graduated like high school or something, then. But like most of the time today, you don't have to have an education. You can have life experiences and teach students today. So for many people, unfortunately, school is the end, not the beginning. He talks about. He also talks about that rich people acquire assets, while the poor and middle class acquire liabilities that they think are assets. Like I talked about, that they buy houses and then when they sell it years later, they think that they made a wise decision. They may sell it with a profit, but then they have to take into account the mortgage that they paid, and then they paid utility costs, and they paid for stuff like that all around the house. And if you calculate everything, then maybe you didn't even make any money from owning a house. And most often, people that own houses don't make any money when they sell it, because then the government will take part of the profits and stuff like that. An asset puts money in my pocket, a liability takes money out of my pocket, is an important key note. If you want to be rich, you need to be financially literate. In chapter 3, he talks about that most people work for everybody but themselves. They work for the owner of the company, so they are the employee of a company, then they are making the owner rich. They work for the government through taxes, and finally for the bank that owns their mortgage. This is important to know if you are an employee that wants to actually go into business for himself, because you can't become a millionaire by being an employee. you have to have some kind of a job. Even the CEO of Coca-Cola, his salary is insane, but he also owns a piece of the company. He owns stocks in the company, and so it's important to know that if you want to be extremely rich, you have to invest in something, in a small business, in a big business, in stocks, in bonds, in real estate. And you have to be an investor or a creator of a business or something like that, because that's the only way to actually make any money is take risks, spend your own money and gain some money back, and always have some kind of a business around that. Have a corporation, have a small holding company, have something, because if you own a corporation, you can pay expenses first, then pay the taxes with what's left. But an employee can only pay taxes first, then you get some money to actually spend. His real estate strategy is start small and keep trading up bigger properties, and therefore delay paying taxes on the gain. This allows the value to increase dramatically. He generally holds real estate for less than 7 years. So he buys small real estates, and then he always moves up until finally he pays a gain tax on if he doesn't buy any properties or anything for a couple of years. Then he has to pay gains tax on the properties. If you work for money, you give the power to your employer. If money works for you, you keep the power and control it. He talks about that financial IQ is made up of knowledge from 4 broad areas of expertise: accounting, investing, understanding the market, and law. A corporation can do many things that the employee cannot, like pay expenses before paying taxes. And in the 5th chapter, the key thing that I got from it was, which sounds harder to you? Work hard, pay 50% in taxes, save what is left, and then your savings will earn somewhere around 2 to 5%, which is also taxed. Or take the time to develop your financial literacy, your financial intelligence, and harness the power of your brain and put it into a business. Buy stocks, buy real estate, buy something that your brain actually knows something about, and that way you can gain some money. In chapter 6, he talks about don't say I can't afford it, because then your brain just shuts down and won't find any ways to actually find any ways to pay or buy the stuff that you want. So always think, how can I afford it? Because that actually opens up your brain to think what possible ideas, what can I do to actually get money to pay for this thing that I want. Your brain gets excited and finds dream scenarios, how to actually make a profit, and that way you can actually someday, hopefully very soon, gain money to actually afford what you want. And finally, he talks about that he hates it that the government, that his father worked all his life, very hard all his life, and then the government took most of what he worked for when he died. So basically the government is always making money when you are an employee, They make money when you sell your house. They make money when you work. They make money when you lease a car. They make money on everything. So always try to have a corporation around your business so you can actually make money for yourself before paying taxes and paying everything. He also talks about how important it is to have an accountant who has interest in whatever you have interest in. So he talks about that he hired an accountant that didn't own any real estate and wasn't interested in real estate, but then when he switched over to an accountant that owned multiple real estates, he found out that guy actually knew loopholes, how to avoid paying real estate taxes, and just that accountant actually knew what he was doing. He knew the market, he knew advices and stuff like that. So don't skip on paying more, because you can get way more knowledge in return. He also talks about that if you think about cutting a broker commission, why would they want to help you? So basically, if you have an accountant, a broker, or somebody like that, if you cut their commission, you stop paying them, stuff like that, why would they continue helping you? That's my final note. Find somebody that is doing what you want to do and learn from that person. Like in the book Tools of Titans by Timothy Ferriss, there he goes through the most important and successful people from his podcast and what key habits they follow through in the life in the healthy, wealthy and wise category. So I recommend the book Tools of Titans by Timothy Ferriss if you actually want to learn from people that have done what you actually want to do. Yes, that was my final note. Thank you.